Live from Lincoln and broadcasting across the state of Nebraska, it's the Average Joe Sports Show. This is the place for Husker sports with the biggest names, the best interviews, and all the inside scoops.
I got a front row seat with a big tub of buttered popcorn and a greasy half-live chicken leg.
Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it. Weekend editions here, the Average Joe Sports Show. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Bill Doleman, Pride of Fairbury shortly, and maybe a Mark Kraynak sighting. Brandon Vogel going to be with us here in a short bit. The Iron Horse, Gary Sharp. It is spring football Saturday and could have been an Elite Eight Saturday for Nebraska basketball, just not enough against Iowa. Plenty of thoughts as we will check out what you have to say in the stream. As always, 7 days a week with the Average Joe Sports Show, YouTube, and on the Average Joe Radio Network, Twitter as well, AJ Sports Radio. So Bill did check in with us, but it was from a distance. It was one of those echoey, hey, I'll be there in a minute. And we just had to ask the question, are you in the can? No, he is he is not. He's packing his bag because Bill has more college kids calling action today between baseball and softball and all the goodness of the spring football Saturday. Elijah, the mustache is glorious today. How we shaking? What was your Friday night like, dude?
It's good. We had to shave the stash. So umpiring season in full swing for me beginning today. I know a lot of folks out there have already gotten their games in. I've been busy with Nebraska basketball and such. Therefore, first games today. I said last night, I'm going to be professional. I'm going to go with the most professional umpire look I know, and that is just the straight mustache. I'm not sure if that is by the rule book, the most professional look. I think I should go fully clean shaven, but
no,
I can't bear to let this upper lip beauty go away. So we're back to just the mustache. The beard has gone away. We'll say it's in honor of the Nebraska basketball season that as their watches ended, so as the watches my beard.
All right, so the playoff beard gone. Bill, we will not do spring football mustaches. And, if Husker football puts a run together this football season, maybe it's got to be fall mustache season. Have you ever – I can't picture Bill Doleman with a stash.
No stash. Did the beard one.
I can't hear Bill Doleman.
No, you can.
No.
I didn't do the stash, did the beard, but no stash. So wasn't a playoff run or anything. Just didn't have anything to do. So what the hell?
You just said, let me go Tom Hanks and Castaway and just see how it grows.
Yeah, kind of.
But no, a lot to get to. We can spend a little bit of time here on Nebraska basketball before we get into some spring football. And fellas, one of the themes for football that they've been chasing and Matt Rule's talked about has been relevancy. And Nebraska from a brand standpoint is still relevant. From a earnings and spending standpoint, Nebraska is still very relevant. And they were relevant enough to get the invite 15 years ago to be a part of the Big Ten as the arms race began for college football. And someday soon, super conferences, what Nebraska is able to do NIL-wise right now in football, and sounds like they're doubling for basketball. But what Hoiberg and company did this year was force their way to the adult table. The kids' table got flipped upside down and discarded by this Nebraska basketball team. With what they did at 28-7, number 2 in the Big Ten, a number 5 ranking for, a top 10 ranking for 6 weeks out of the season. And it really kind of reinforces with how the Elite Eight has settled in. Although Sparty got nipped last night, you still have Purdue rocking and rolling. You still have Michigan, an impressive win against Bama. Then you have Illinois and Iowa to get to the Final Four. I mean, Nebraska's 4 losses. Well, you had a total of 7, but you lost to, the same team once. And, you dropped a few here and there, and UCLA had a pretty good season as well. So, Nebraska basketball on that doorstep to continue to reinforce this relevancy that they earned this season by getting to a Sweet 16. And, Fred's a finalist for the Naismith Coach of the Year, deservedly so. And you did it on a budget. You did it with great development. You did it with outstanding coaching. And you did it with the right picks in the portal. So the contrast is there. It's a work in progress for Nebraska football to get back to that kind of the power spot or the halves in Big Ten football. Continues today with this spring game and into the summer workouts. But basketball right there trying to stay there, fellas.
I just hope Nebraska has now done enough athletically that Desmond Howard will let us stay in the Big Ten. That's really what's on my mind. I know football has
6 years later.
Football has some issues, but gosh dang it. Getting to number 2 in the Big Ten and in basketball and making it to the Sweet 16, beating UCLA in softball last night, being ranked now in baseball with, the win over Indiana last night and probably going to win that series. Wrestling finishing number 3 in the country for these top 3 back-to-back years. Track wins in, indoor conference championships. Gymnastics is doing well. I just hope they'll let us stay at the table, but I know Desmond has all the power. So I just hope Nebraska is able to do enough to stay relevant. Now, it does come down to football.
Yeah.
For it right now, in terms of relevancy, Nebraska football isn't in the top half on campus right now. And I think part of it has to do, it goes back to, I said it yesterday, jump the shark moments. And last year's spring fiasco was a jump the shark, disrespectful moment to Nebraska football fans, Nebraska athletic fans. The spring game is a spring celebration, really, for all Nebraska athletics. Let's all get together and let's 60,000 gather. I don't know if they'll have 20 today.
15's what's sold.
Right. So it's football that needs to get back to the competitive table that everybody else on campus has been setting. And I don't think we will really know until they play Michigan State the 4th week of the season.
Well, it's wild to me, 15,000 seats for something that has been, just a year after year tradition. And it's because last year showed people, if you don't have a spring game, it's okay. People are still going to live. And there's, as the years have gone on in college football, there's been fewer and fewer spring storylines that people care about. With the transfer portal, you don't know when someone's going to leave, when someone's going to show up. The development doesn't matter. It used to be fun to show up to a spring game and see a guy that was 2nd or 3rd team on the depth chart, and you think maybe in a couple of years that guy could be a starter. He's from, I don't know, name your town out in central or western Nebraska, and you can get excited about him because maybe he'll be a guy who's contributing in a couple of years. You don't have that anymore. There's no real preview that you get. It's an early chance to see the guys you'll see in the fall for the one season before they either re-enter the transfer portal or go off to the NFL or out of eligibility or whatever it may be. And yet last year showed people if you don't have it, it's okay. And to me, like growing up, it always used to be a nice, finally we get at least one football game in the spring, something to just kind of satiate my appetite until August rolls around and we get fall camp news and we get that first game. And I think folks are kind of like, actually, keep football in August, in September. I don't want to think about it right now. We have so many other good things going on with baseball and softball, who were both got wins last night and some fun games. And then you got basketball who's doing so well. People just don't want to think about football right now. That's okay.
But like the spring game, okay, first of all, they thrust it upon the campus today. There's a lot of stuff that had been already scheduled that has been disrupted. It was a little disruptive, I guess, disrespectful to think, well, maybe Nebraska's not going to be in the Elite Eight. Who would have thought that anyway? Who would have thought that? Who would have thought that anyway? But the spring game, look, if there was baseball going on, it was let's all gather at Memorial Stadium and then disseminate out to wherever you're going to go, with whatever is happening elsewhere on campus. Not like the baseball game and the softball games were long scheduled. And now we're just going to thrust this spring game upon people and expect you to show up. The Husker Hunger Games, that's what I called them last year, the Husker Hunger Games, and who knew that the arrow was pointed inwardly? I just go back to being disrespectful to Nebraska fans. It was a spring opportunity to gather around, have a little fun in April, and I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, it's 7 degrees. Mm-hmm. and now you say, well, yeah, we are going to have it. And here's where it is. You're going to like it. There might be more people instead of going to Memorial Stadium. Look, I know there's going to be 15, probably over 20,000 people there. But I think there are some people whose first priority is I'm going to go to baseball and softball and get in line there and enjoy my afternoon elsewhere. The spring game was a big deal because Nebraska fans got together, mm-hmm. And celebrated Nebraska football and all that.
You got together. You had hopes of another strong season. You were interested in the walk-on or the in-state recruit. You were interested in what's going on at quarterback, right? And you were interested in, all right, how do the fellas look to project more hope and certainty for what type of impact they can make in the Big 12, the Big 8, or the Big 10.
Well, and if nothing else, people just wanted a taste of football in the spring.
Right.
Yeah.
And now I don't think people want a taste of football in the spring. People want to keep football in the fall. Don't ruin my day in March too. You just ruin my day in September, October, and November. But don't ruin my March.
Let's pray that it for some, yes, it's been a accumulation of ruining days. And this is so negative this morning. I'm sorry, but I think it could get flipped around. I'm not looking at a monster breakthrough, but I'm looking at better football. I'm looking at better play. I'm looking at better fit. We bring in Brandon Vogel with counter read. Mark Kraynak is staring through me. Kraynak, I like the glasses, dude.
You're muted.
Thank you. I had them last week too, so thanks for noticing, Chris. But
I was going to compliment you last week, and we just ran out of time.
I like your coiffed hair and your polo quarter zip button. It's actually a button thing. Yeah. You know what I mean.
Thanks for noticing.
It looks good. Yeah, you're welcome. This is great. Hi, Brandon. Hi, Bill.
Hey, guys.
Hi, Elijah. Me and Chris were just admiring each other for a second there.
We tend to do that.
You ain't got nothing for me, Mark?
We tend to do that since we started working together, 1998, the spring game we all got to work on together. So,
Elijah, I appreciate the fact that you're wearing a flannel and you're wearing something that is lined at the same time. Like, why choose when you can have both?
Yeah.
Thank you. It's really good. And
somebody worked on some new material this morning.
And Brandon's got a shawl collar. That's good. And then Bill's looking similar to Chris, right? Similar look.
I'm working the game day 3/4,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Got to have it. Vogues, you know that. That's part of the rules. You need some sort of, collar cover up. And we were talking about relevancy to get things going, and Nebraska basketball, thrusting themselves into basketball relevancy with an incredible season, unforgettable magic and heartbreak to boot, with how it ended against Iowa. And we've contrasted it a bit with, people's appetite, mood, vibe towards football. Let's stay with basketball for a second and get your take on how things shook out against Iowa. And it went from a great start to trying to hang on and stiff arm Iowa to just not being able to make plays down the stretch, hit some shots. It went absolutely cold. And how big a threat is Iowa to whack Illinois later?
I think they're certainly dangerous, and it's tough to pick against a team that's done what they've done just to get to this point. That said, I do like Illinois in that game. The Nebraska-Iowa game, like, it kind of just came down to, and this is what basketball is generally, but it gets heightened in March. Nebraska was a very good shooting team all year. Against an Iowa defense that wasn't that great at limiting opponents' field goal percentage. Iowa was also a very good shooting team, but it was going against a Nebraska defense that was good in terms of opponent field goal percentage. And Iowa just won that. And, it took them 38 minutes to finally climb all the way up the hill. But at the point that they did it, they had momentum. And, unfortunately, this team had a mistake, had an error with only 4 people on the court. And that becomes part of the story. But I'm sure you guys have talked about it. And the general tenor seems to be that people already know this. Like, it's not the story of this season. The most memorable thing Nebraska did this year was cross that tournament black mark off of their resume forever. I think the most impressive thing they did moving forward is they got the 2 seed in they had a very good year, not in a year when the Big Ten was down, but in a year in which I think we can see pretty clearly now, especially in the tournament, the Big Ten was up. So that'll probably, as we get 4 or 5 years down the road, will be what I remember. Well, maybe not remember, but be the biggest takeaway from this team.
That is the takeaway, their body of work for sure, and just how hard and how well they played to put themselves in position. And I want to get your take here. What can basketball become? Is it too soon to talk staying power? Let's get your thought on the expectation side of things here moving forward with your NIL budget now around, we're thinking and hearing about $8 million. Fred's done a great job of finding the prices of the world, the Bear K's of the world, and then getting, Kale and Sam, 2 local products, to really up and elevate their game the longer they've been in the program. What's the zip code for Nebraska basketball? We know what football's trying to get to, as deep and talented as Big Ten basketball is. Where can they stay? Where can they move into?
Yeah, it's a fascinating question, and I think it'll, the portal will open in a little over a week, and that'll give us some idea, because there's a lot at stake and a lot at play here. You get that extra money, and that's good. What do you do with it? What's it look like? What does Nebraska want to be? Because you can already, like, expectations going into next season will be like, wow, great year. Now it doesn't become your floor, but it kind of becomes the bar, right? And some of that'll depend on what Nebraska is able to do in the portal, what exactly they're bringing back or not bringing back in some cases. But as I thought about that loss to Iowa and how it happened for most of the past 36 hours, like, kind of came to the realization just how hard it is to do what Nebraska did. Like, if you all had to put 500 down right now on, like, one side of this, will Nebraska make
the wife?
Well, yeah. Will Nebraska make the Sweet? I'm trying to pick a number that's, like, significant and, a stretch. So it has to hurt a little bit. Will Nebraska make a Sweet 16 in the next 4 years? Like, I think that's the hope now, because that's where they've been. You want to better it. But you just look at it, this Nebraska team, with the draw that it had a 40% chance as a 4 seed to make the Sweet 16. So it's tough. But that's going to be like, well, you did that. Let's see if we can keep building on it, which is fair, but it's just hard when you kind of step back and look at it.
How many teams in college basketball have that longevity or the perpetual every year? Kansas, of course, now everybody can pay like Kansas has, Duke and whatnot. But BYU had 1 player making more money than Nebraska's roster. They didn't finish in the top 4 of their conference. They were preseason. They were preseason top 5, top 10. Came into Lincoln and got beaten in an exhibition game. But they had 1 guy making more money than Nebraska's entire roster. They weren't even top 4. They were like middle of the pack in the Big 12 and get bounced in the first round of the tournament. So as I said yesterday, the money you spend there's got to be an investment in character because of the culture of the program that has been in place. Really, you'd have to go back 4 years now. You'd have to say Nebraska's got a good culture of character within the program, and that includes people who have been brought in from the transfer portal, as well as some homegrowns that have certainly helped out. But the sustaining in college basketball, look at I know it's a mid-major, but look at Butler. A few years ago, everybody thought, maybe almost 20 years ago now, Butler's going to be the Midwest Gonzaga. And now they're just kind of a name. Oh, I remember when they were really good like 20 years ago when Barry Collier was coaching, and Thad Matta had his first go around there. They were really good back then, Brad Stevens, but then getting back up the hill as a mid-major has been almost impossible. Gonzaga's had some sustained success, but they've been in the West Coast. But, other than some really deep runs, it's just really tough in college basketball to be a perpetual Sweet 16, Elite 8 program. Ask Hubert Davis. He was in the Final Four a couple of years ago. Ask Dana Altman, unfortunately.
I think that's the key point. If you think about the teams like currently that are obviously, you've got your Dukes of the world, but they're almost all those. They're like the top of the sport. Arizona is in that group, I think, at the moment. UConn, go look at UConn's record in the tournament since sort of its rise in the 1990s. It's remarkable. UConn is kind of a fixture, but other than that, it's hard for a team starting from where Nebraska is starting at for 26, 27, to just be like, yeah, they're going to be a fixture for the next couple of years. I think they can. I think they've got an important moment here to capitalize on. It'll be interesting to see, and we'll get a sense based on what they do in the portal. But stylistically, are they going to stay the same? Because that kind of 5-out style that looked beautiful and was exactly how this team needed to play is kind of waning a little bit, I think, for big time college programs. And in some ways that becomes the game of is Nebraska going to take another step, or was this year the best in school history and that ends up being it? I don't think that it's trending towards the latter, but it's a big ask to just take this and build on what you just did.
It's kind of how basketball is cyclical in a way, in that everyone starts running 5-out offense. Your AAU and youth basketball teams were now running 5-out offenses, and magically those big post defenders, they get more comfortable guarding on the outside, but they have less experience guarding a true post-up big man. And now you have the return of the true post-up big man to college basketball, especially these teams that are advancing to the Elite Eight and the teams that I think look poised to make a Final Four. They have that big man that'll bang down low, because we're now going on 10 years of everyone with the Steph Curry influence and having 5 guys that can shoot it, and what that did to college basketball 10 years ago. That's permeated through the lower levels of college of youth and high school basketball. And now you have guys that are dominant on the inside that don't have, opposition that are ready for that kind of game because of how they've played their entire life.
Yeah, it's cyclical is exactly the right word. That kind of the old way of doing it became the contrarian kind of strategy. And where did the best big men in the country congregate? That's the best, the basketball powers.
Look at Indiana. Yeah. I mean, it is the basketball school, associated with basketball like Kansas, Duke, and Carolina. And since Mike Davis's first year, they had a great coach in Kelvin Sampson. He got busted for text messages. They bounced him and needed a show cause. So, they might have had some relevancy again. But Indiana, I think, in basketball is a bit like where Nebraska is in football, trying to hold on to, Bob Knight's former glories. And I think DeVries is a great coach, but, it's an uphill climb for Indiana to get back to where they think they are, not just where they think they should be, but I think in their minds where they think they are. And there's, like I said, that's probably equates a little bit with Nebraska football, but Indiana has not been relevant as an upper echelon basketball program for more than a couple of decades.
Yeah, you got to go back. You got to go way back with them, and they've had a cup of coffee here or there, but haven't really been able to break through.
Yeah, exactly.
which it does speak to something that we've all kind of touched on, and it's that chemistry component, right? And you look at the extremes that Hoiberg has experienced. I don't know if there was a team with worse chemistry in college basketball than some of his early teams during the COVID years.
First couple teams.
Right? I mean, just the utter lack of it. If you didn't have Trey McGowan's locking down somebody, those scores would have been even worse. You at least had that, right? And you at least had his baby brother show up and, turn into the NBA prospect that he was. So he has seen both sides of it. But is it that simple? Is that really what it is, right? Is that the missing link? Because you bring up Indiana, Bill, and they're getting talented guys. It's not like they're getting 2 stars and 3 stars and all that. Same with Kansas. Kansas isn't getting leftovers, right?
Getting the wrong dude, though, culturally.
Yeah. All those teams, which puts just kind of a different premium on the challenge as a coach, right? Because chemistry usually is something you can build over time, right? You get everybody in the program, you indoctrinate them, you nurture it, you bring it along, but you need to be able to do it like that, that quickly. And it's just interesting. You wonder for Nebraska in particular. Yes, they've had good glue guys pre-Hoiberg, pre-Sam Hoiberg. But Sam Hoiberg was a damn good glue guy. Really, really good glue guy. Do they still have that same level of chemistry without him? Do you think it's established enough to where you can expect them to be that connected, the most popular new term in college basketball parlance? Do you think they can still maintain that without him?
I think the answer to that is probably in the portal, which is going to be pretty interesting. And also, just by some people may have recoiled a little bit about saying that, but I think top priority is Nebraska's got to get a point guard, and maybe they need to get a point guard who's a little more drive and kick than what they had. Price Sandford needs milliseconds to get his shot off, and just inches of space. But there were still long stretches, particularly as you got into conference play, where he just didn't get shots, and it wasn't for lack of effort. I mean, the guy runs continuously. But there weren't a lot of instances where he's just, his man helped off and he's wide open on the wing. That's automatic. He made a lot of tough shots. So, and he'll have kind of a decision to make about exploring the NBA or not. And Nebraska having increased dollars certainly factors into that decision, you would think. But in terms of a glue guy, I think a lot's going to depend on what Nebraska decides it needs to do at point guard. And that would be priority one for me in the weeks ahead.
Well, in terms of, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday, I got the sheet pulled up. Justice Rhodey made this for us about a month and a half ago, in terms of the in and out guys for Nebraska basketball, kind of previewing next year's team and what it could be. And I know there's been some conversations behind the scenes with some tentative numbers offered for some guys that are in the program, and we'll see what that means for a guy like Price and Braden as they kind of explore the NBA draft process. But if you just lose the seniors, which in today's college basketball is rare, but for this experiment, we'll say this, they wouldn't have there's no true point guard on roster right now. Maybe Quentin Rhymes, a guy that they redshirted this year that they seem to like, but we'll leave that spot open. You have Price and Braden both being able to play the wing for you, so I'd kind of slot them in as a 2 and a 3. You have Burke likely coming back to play your 4. You have Ugnis Yarosevicius, who
Gesundheit.
Thank you.
I know. How many syllables is in that word? That name?
Just Oogie.
Kind of plays like Rink. I practiced his name. I'm going to say his name. Kind of plays like Rink. I'm slotting him in as the center. And then guys off the bench. This is the big complaint for Nebraska this year. If you bring those 4 guys back, you bring in a point guard, you'd have Cale Jacobson off the bench, Connor Esigian off the bench, a guy in Colin Rice, who they're very excited about coming off the bench. I already talked about Quentin Rhymes, but another potential guy coming off the bench, Leo Curtis, Jacob Lanier, who they like coming out of the high school ranks. You have options that would be sitting on that bench. It seems to be potentially a team that is more deep than this last year. But the big question mark, as Mark kind of laid out, is how do you replace Sam Hoiberg? Because every other spot you seem to have a guy waiting in the wings that you'd think can step in and play a more significant role this year. Plus, you'd have more options off the bench. But what do you do at point guard?
Well, you go get one, and then you see what Lanier can do.
I'm going to need that. I got the red pen. I'm going to need Justice's extra credit work so I can grade that.
Yeah.
He's been missing a lot of class lately for whatever reason. So I got the red pen ready for grading.
We'll get that sent. Vogues, could Kale kind of step into that Sam role? Sam, obviously transplanted from Chicago, but finished his career at Pius. But that kind of sheriff / moral compass leader. You had Sam and Rink, obviously incredible with leading the team. Kale has done enough through working his way up, and he's shown flashes in game where he's gonna, he's produced enough to be listened to from what you see on the practice floor and what you've seen in the games, and he's just a team first guy. Is Kale a candidate? And it comes down to being comfortable doing that.
Yeah, I think so. He's certainly displayed some of those traits. And when you look at whatever the makeup of next year's team ends up being, like he's kind of an important piece at holding it all together. He's probably not going to have as much. I mean, it would be a surprise to me if he has as much kind of on-court responsibility as Sam had this year. And how does that impact that? It doesn't have to. Like, you can still kind of be the heartbeat of the team. No matter if you're playing 38 minutes a game or something closer to normal of 34, 32, something like that. So he's going to be a big factor, I think. And I think that's good. You want to kind of keep that core. We talk about more money and what that could mean. And, we talked a couple of weeks ago, I think, about that's great, but it also comes with a little bit of risk of, like, do you lose some identity just because you have the extra money to spend? And it's going to be guys like Jacobson that I think insure against that to a degree.
I think Jacobson is not necessarily the guy on the court in games. It's going to be the guy in the practice room that where his presence and leadership will be most impactful for what goes on next year. I think to be able to be an understudy to Sam and, to another extent to Juwan Gary a year ago, I think that probably helps or puts the onus on Jacobson, but I think he would be the one who's prepared to be the guy in practice, the guy in the locker room, the guy off the court that gets guys together. There was so much made about what Sam did with Rink and getting guys together and making sure that there was camaraderie, chemistry, and cohesiveness, connectedness off the court. And I would think that after a couple of years of being around those guys, that's Jacobson's role to step into next year. Probably not going to be a starter. And maybe to a certain extent, Burke grows up into a role like that, to where, look, he's got a lot of pride and love in the program, and there's going to be probably a different accountability that he brings, different for, say, the presence of a Rink Mast. But one of the most indelible images of the past season was the bloodied mouth against Michigan State. I mean, and that dude, proved that he'll have the effort and the heart, and you better match the heart and the effort, or you're probably going to end up looking like him in that game. So I think those two guys might be that Sam Hoiberg, Rink Mast 2.0-ish. I don't think they're going to replicate it, but I think that those might be the two leaders.
How about Berke, by the way? Let's chat about him for a second. You remember when he came in out of UCLA, he was a little bit more of the kind of the skilled European big man, right? That was sort of how he came in. His body wasn't right. He had to I think he was coming off some injury and had to reshape himself a little. What he evolved into this year, though, was more of your classic 4, right? Somebody who would just bang down low, get rebounds, do the dirty work. If you could get 6 to 8 points out of him, great. But his role was defense, rebounding. But you rewind to that North Dakota game, and I only know about that one because I was there, right? So I watched all of it. And that was his triple-double game. Rink, I think Rink was struggling or coming back off injury or something, so he only played a little bit. But Berke pretty much took his typical role, Rink's typical role, and he got a triple-double. I mean,
There's
his
talent.
passes were nice. He looked comfortable. He looked comfortable at the top of the key with the offense kind of running through him. I just wonder if maybe his role evolves a little bit with Rink's departure. I don't know that he's going to be exactly like Rink because he's not as much of a 3-point threat. But anybody that's capable of a triple-double where one of those doubles is assists and you're 6'10", like, I don't know. Was it more like, hey, we have Rink, so we don't need that out of you now, Berke, so just go bang down low. But now the Rink's gone. What might we see out of him? He is kind of an X factor.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I do think there's a scenario where he showed at times that he could be that type of, masked. He can play that masked role potentially with some more development. I think in a perfect world for me, I'd look at Nebraska adding a big, maybe a big who can do some more traditional big things, and then if Berke kind of continues to develop and comes along, you have that kind of basically the style we saw Nebraska play this season, and you can run it with Berke, and maybe you can also do something else depending on what type of big. I mean, of course, they could go out in the portal and look for more of a 1-to-1 masked replacement. But I agree with you, Mark. I do think Berke is close, and shout out to Coach Linzer. I think the biggest thing for me has been coming from UCLA. He was not the defensive player that he is today. And I think that's been the most remarkable kind of progression from him that I've seen.
Yeah. And he embraced it too, right? He embraced the role. Yeah.
Well, and that's what you loved, right? You go to UCLA, you're a stretch, you're athletic, you're mobile, you've got this ability to shoot threes. Now that needs to step up if he's going to switch roles from rebounding and defense to add more offensive responsibility. There needs to be more consistency, but he's shown flashes offensively, finishing around the rim, being a little stronger around the rim is important because he's got all the tools to do it. I'm wondering what is next from a agent's discussion and NIL standpoint. Does representation for Frager and Berke understand both of their value? Yes, to this next season. You have Price figuring out the NBA situation, but you hope it doesn't get sour or sideways with negotiations because, do you ask for and get a bump if you're Berke after, kind of frankly breaking the bank when you came here originally compared to what the roster was getting? And if you're Frager, you've been incredible. That's been a two-way street. You've put the work in. Nebraska also saw in you something that you could immediately do. Here's your workout plan. Here's how you're going to be used. And boom, your redshirt freshman season, you had a bunch of double-digit scoring games and, quite frankly, are a bit of a unicorn, being able to get off the dribble and get to the rim as the slasher on the team. So you've got some business to talk with both of those guys on top of Price to keep this thing we're feeling great about, if you're a Nebraska basketball fan, intact for 2026-2027, folks.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty key, and I think it's hard because we don't have broad access to any of the numbers. We got a lot of rumors about numbers. I'm not talking about Nebraska specifically, just across the country, but it seems to me, at least in theory, because we don't have that kind of access, like I'm okay overpaying to keep your guys. Like, it's kind of an HR rule of thumb that replacing somebody like often costs like 75% of the salary just to like find the person and get them in. So in that case, like that would definitely be my approach. And you would hope that after the season Nebraska had, that those guys would want to be here. That, well, Nebraska can match at least or even exceed whatever might be out there, whatever the market determines those guys' value is. And then if that's the case, it's a place that Nebraska wants to be. And I think that last part is the part I don't worry about until shown otherwise, because it sure did seem like this team in particular had a great season, obviously, but it was a season that people enjoyed.
Well, part of the deal requirement is his own Herbie Husker cowboy hat, oversized.
Yeah.
Vogue's final thought here, bud. Tell us about Counter Read, how folks can get on board, and a thought on the spring game. A couple of guys you're looking at, partner.
Yeah, you can head to counterread.com and check out what we're up to there. It was plenty of basketball through the week. We'll have the spring game today, so I'm looking forward, even if it's not top of the interest list of late of jumping into some football stuff. There's been a handful of things that I wanted to write about but didn't, just because of what Nebraska basketball was doing. As for today, obviously want to take a look at the quarterback, and I'm sure a lot of people have interest in running back, but most of all for me, it's getting a look at the defense. I think that as I look towards 2026 is the major growth area for Nebraska. So let's see how that looks, and let's take a moment to note here before March is over. This is a 16-1 upset that we just engineered. So credit to all of us. We spent almost all of the past 30 minutes talking about a Nebraska basketball season that is over on spring game Saturday. Imagine saying that at any point prior to this.
So true.
15 plus years, this thing's been rocking. Yeah. You lost a ton of money. 16-1 upset. It is. That's how good they were this year. Folks,
Brandon, who will you be looking at the number 4 spot on the Jack Backer and also on the left cornerback position for the Huskers going into fall camp? Thank you.
Yeah, that's the thing. I have no idea at this moment. So
who's going to play fullback? Oh, wait.
Wow.
Sorry. Vogue, you be good, buddy. Have a good day.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
There he is. Brandon Vogel with us. The Iron Horse back with us. And yes, 23 set. Is it 23? 22?
22 Saturdays till we have ball. I like football. I will watch. I will consume today. But it's a little bit sad that the spring game has lost its luster, not only in Lincoln, but across college football, because this used to be a thing. When you were a little kid, you would get to go down to Memorial Stadium and run around because your dad or your mom, well, both, wanted to go see the future Huskers, and it was a real game. And then it just kind of, it's kind of petered out in Lincoln and around college football. I think not only back-to-back 7-win seasons, basketball, of course, I also think the format of last year has really taken people away. People will observe. Thankfully, it's on the Big Ten Network. I'm sure they'll do a good number. But I think we probably could have seen the attention towards spring football in the sport coming for a while. It's just unfortunate that it's happening in a place like Lincoln, which, you get 50, 60, 70,000 for a spring game, and we brag about it, and people go, God, you guys have nothing better to do. Well, we like football around here, so I don't know. It'll be weird to see the stadium, and the discussion is more about how many people are not going to be there than, hey, what's Calandria look like? Mm-hmm. But it's bizarro world, guys, because last year's starting quarterback is in Lincoln, and this year's starting quarterback is in Lincoln. And
Why is
one
he
was
here?
at a Nebraska sporting event last night, and the other was sleeping, getting ready for his debut as a Husker today.
Why is
Welcome
he
to
here?
Bizarro World.
Why is Dylan in town? What's going on?
His girlfriend for a while is on the Nebraska softball team. So they're in the middle of their break in Eugene for spring football. So he came in town to see her.
Got it.
One programming note as I check out, because I have to go educate the youth of America so they're not gimmick sportscasters like High Point in Iowa. Wow. Lauren Kamenson, who made a nice catch in the seventh inning last night in Nebraska's big win over UCLA. We're gonna be working her into the program.
Oh,
so
good.
Might hear her
Wow.
on the air
Nice.
sometime.
Didn't she crush one to left field?
Yeah,
last
she had a
night,
big
too?
home
that
run
was
last
her.
night.
That was her sister.
Mhm.
You can't tell the difference.
Oh, that was
Lauren's-
Hannah. Yeah, that
Lauren's
was
at
Hannah.
second base, and she made the catch, diving catch, in the seventh inning to help Nebraska's win and give Jordy Fromm her 8th save, breaking Rhonda Ravel's record. So I'm going to go bounce out, educate the youth, and guys,
Nice
I'll
job,
see
Bill.
y'all later.
We'll keep you.
Nice job.
We'll get you some popcorn at halftime, Bill.
See ya.
There he
Godspeed.
is, Pride of Fairbury, Bill Doleman with us. Sharpie, how was H-Town, dude?
It was great. It was great. Not a big fan of the arena. But
Was it just Toyotas in general?
yeah, well, you know what? I don't think I've ever owned a Toyota. I don't have anything against Toyota. I just, it wasn't a great arena. But here's the thing. Like this whole little stretch of back-to-back weekends south of here just reminds everybody how great this fan base is, because we've gotten under the skin of a lot of other fan bases by the way that Nebraskans party, Nebraskans support, Nebraskans drink. Okay? So the Nebraska fan base is back, baby. We are absolutely back. But, a couple of days later, it still stings. I mean, it means something to you if it still stings a couple of days later. And my thing is, as I look back on this season, and it was a season that if you're not proud of, then get the hell out, okay?
Yeah.
Because Nebraska basketball, Fred Hoiberg took this program places that it's never been, and these guys are going to be remembered forever. It stings because there are winners and losers in competition, but your final thing on the stage is one of your poorer performances. Yeah. Where your hero, Mighty Mouse, Sam Hoiberg, didn't play very well. Mm-hmm. Other guys didn't play very well. And a little bit of it was Iowa. A little bit more was about Nebraska. And that's the one that stings. But this team showed you that in this day and age where Kentucky, Kansas, and North Carolina were not in the Sweet 16, and Nebraska and Iowa were, things have changed in college athletics. The brand doesn't carry as much weight as it does anymore. It's about the money. It's about the coaching. It's about the execution. That what happened this year is possible at Nebraska. This is not a dream. This is not a Cinderella. That if you have the right guy in place, which Nebraska does, and I think he's the national coach of the year, he squeezed everything out of this team. And it kind of got his candidacy for national coach of the year, I think got some run with what people did, what people saw on Thursday night with what he did to that team, that they were in that game that they were leading when really only one guy was going all night consistently. But Nebraska basketball has shown what's possible. And the expectations, because of a conference that you play in, are going to be raised that not only NCAA tournament every year, which is not easy when you consider Nebraska, but it's possible for Nebraska to be a second weekend team and maybe one of those magical times where the ball goes in and you get a favorable matchup and things just fall into place. You're playing for a third straight weekend. So it's a journey that people will have memories forever. They have memories with their buddies. They have memories with their kids. And that's what it's all about in sports. And you can't say enough for this ride that Nebraska basketball has taken the fan base on, and they'll be remembered forever. It just sucks that that's the way they go out. And they go from being this great story of, man, they did something they've never done before, that they become a meme that I got to see all of this stuff in my group text of, a Five Guys restaurant in Lincoln that only has 4 players in uniform and Hoiberg waiting on them. I mean, that's what really sucks.
I know.
Sharpie, can I ask you the question here? Because there's been so many comparisons this year with what the two schools have done with Indiana football and Nebraska basketball. They've flipped places. And if that is true, could you make an argument that this season for Nebraska was Indiana's 2024, where you got a lot better quickly? You kind of got a taste of what maybe was to come. There's the national attention that's come on you, a boost to NIL funds coming your way. And now with the man at the top that knows exactly what he wants to do with the NIL funds, you can bring a couple more pieces on that lift this team from a top 15 team to a team that's competing for a national championship. Can I sell you on that argument there that this was Indiana of 2024 for Nebraska and it's only up from here?
I like where you're going with that. Can I answer that after Nebraska is done putting together their 26-27 roster? But I like where you're going with that because they've gotten a taste of it. And, unfortunately, the Mass of the world, the Hoibergs of the world aren't coming back. And both of those guys are going to be very difficult to replace. You can't replace what Sam Hoiberg did for this team. You can't. But I think they know what they need. And as you mentioned, they go from a $4.5 million roster. There's an investment and there's some young money. There's going to be some young money that comes into Nebraska basketball, which is key because the Nebraska basketball fan has kind of been the old school, the older fan that we latch on to the Danny Nee era. Now you've got some new people that believe in the guy that's in charge, just like at Indiana. And I like this comparison because people at Indiana had to see it and they got a guy in place that made them believe it. And I think we're seeing that with Nebraska basketball. It just has taken a little bit longer because next year will be Hoiberg's 8th year.
You know what this team did? With the number of shows we were doing down in the rail yard, you see this young, energetic college fan base kind of mix in with the older Nebraska basketball fan base. So you got a really nice spectrum here of 18 to 65, 70-year-olds that love this team and just the energy, the excitement, the joy that they brought because, yes, they're winning and they're doing so many things for the first time.
Yeah.
That all put a magical run together for this team. But what's really cool is the hope it brought. Okay, and this is the first time a lot of fans a little younger than Elijah really latched on to kind of a special season. Most of us have experienced it for football, but there's some that haven't. Like their peak team or season was, Sioux in 09, right? Or 2010 with T Magic from a football standpoint. And some don't know the 05 CWS squad or that first Van Horn team, right? But this basketball team, tractor beamed a ton of Nebraska fans into what's possible with just how talented the way they play and then just winning big games and performing, even if they didn't win, performing for the most part pretty well in losses. So that's the element you got too with this basketball team.
Yeah, I think we can all agree this program's in a good spot. And they got some tweaks on the roster. Sanford did say the word if I'm back next year. I hope he actually declares for the NBA draft because, he's got enough people around him that will give him advice, including his brother who's in the NBA, that, is he a late second round guy? But I do know that Nebraska has a commitment to keep the key pieces from this year's team that are eligible to come back. But they've just given you a sense of, we know where we're going. We know how to get there now. And can it continue over to the next year? And, can they get back to the Sweet 16? Let's get back to the NCAA tournament. But there's a lot more positivity and moving forward with Nebraska basketball than I've seen in a long time. But one thing they've got to do in this portal, and they've got a nice freshman class coming, including Colin Rice from Iowa, is they need a dude at point guard.
Yep.
They need a dude that on both ends of the floor is a pain in the butt that people talk about. And first and foremost, they got to get a point guard. They got to get a dude that can break down a defense and then can swipe the ball or two on the other end and isn't a defensive liability that, Iowa started to hunt Frager and Lawrence Thursday night because they're defensive liabilities. You need a point guard that isn't a liability on both ends and that can facilitate. You don't need a Sturtz. I mean, we'd all like to have a Sturtz that has the stamina that he has, and miraculously he stays out of foul trouble, but he makes everybody else better. And I think that's a key thing at the top of the list to go find for Nebraska, in my opinion.
And as maligned as this guy has kind of been this year, rightfully so, you kind of need a fuse from Michigan State. I mean, he's well-rounded, defends well, facilitates, makes his teammates better. He can go get a bucket when he needs to. And he's one of the better point guards in college basketball.
A little angry.
But a little angry, yeah. And to just backtrack here about 2 minutes from what you said, I think one thing that might help Nebraska's case on getting Sanford back, because that is the biggest piece that you could get back. And I from what I understand, Nebraska will financially make it worth his time if he does decide to come back. The biggest thing that I think helps is this isn't an especially deep NBA draft class this year. If you wait a year, could you improve your draft stock just because you don't have, but those top 15 guys going to the NBA draft this year, you usually don't have 15 to 20 guys like this coming out of the NBA draft. Usually you kind of have that 5 to 10 that you feel like, all right, these guys can step in and make a difference on an NBA roster right away. And then you have some other pieces that maybe you get a little lucky, but it really legitimately feels like there's 15 to 20 guys that will be playing in an NBA rotation next season and playing pretty significant minutes. This year's NBA draft class feels especially deep compared to the average year, and that could help Nebraska this year. Whereas, Sanford comes back, puts that up another first team all Big Ten type season. Are you a guy that's going in the first round as opposed to mid or late in the second round, which is where I think he'd probably be forecasted this year?
God, how beautiful is that shot, by the way?
Is there a Tanner or a Wagler out there, either portal or high school for Nebraska?
I wouldn't go high school. I don't think there's a high school guy that's available right now that can do what Nebraska needs. It's still early. The portal opens up on the 7th. A lot of the major Power 5 conference guys that are going to go into the portal haven't. But, the thing about the thing with Fred has done and his staff is, they aren't late to the party. Like, they're going to make a concerted effort for Sanford and Frager. If they want to dip their toes somewhere else, it's not because Nebraska didn't try.
Right.
So I don't know who would be out there yet, but the one thing about Fred is Fred has connections. Here's the thing that also the influx of new money and to up that roster, it allows you to compete to get that dude, but it also allows you to compete to keep the guys you want to keep. And I think that's the key point. I don't think Fred will get away from his system of finding the right fit. And all of a sudden you're handed all this money and you're like, hey, let's just put together a star-studded roster. I think Fred will stick to the principles of we're putting together a roster that's good for us for the long haul of a season in the locker room and on the floor. But that extra little cash is going to give you a chance, I think, to get a dude. And also there's just some excitement. Who wouldn't want to play at PBA? Who wouldn't want to play for a guy that has NBA connections? It can be beneficial if Sanford gets drafted because you can say, hey, portal guy, you came here. Look what we did. Bryce Williams playing pro basketball. He's on the cusp of possibly getting a taste in the NBA. So there's just, you can't let the year just be the year. It has to be the springboard to another year, and you keep this train going. And I firmly believe that Fred's got the handle on it. And if he has a good portal season and gets the right pieces to replace a Mast, who is kind of like the George Niang, and that's kind of how Fred's offenses work. If you can find a big post guy that is at the top of the arc that can pass, can score, can back down guys, then I think you're cooking with peanut oil for another season. But the expectations will be super high, and they should be. This team's raised the bar, and it's kind of exciting. I don't think it's fearful. I think it's exciting.
Yeah. And then speaking of expectations, kind of feels like as that's happening, as the expectations go up for basketball, for football, it feels like the expectations maybe are leveling out a little bit. I wouldn't say they're low. I think people still have high expectations of the football team. But
they may be more fearful.
we were texting about all of this last night about the just general lack of interest in this spring game in particular, which, listen, it's a spring game. most programs don't care a ton about spring games. So I don't think that's necessarily an indictment on anything, but it's an observation. People don't really care about it. I think the casual fan couldn't even name Anthony Calandria. Doesn't even know his name. I mean, truly.
Yeah.
Talk to enough casual fans that watch every Saturday where I'm just like, yeah, you start to talk about the quarterback and they're just like, where's he from? What? I don't even know. Right? Like
Maybe.
it's just the interest level has waned a little bit. Is that what the program needs right now? Do they need, because there has been this imbalance. There's been this huge imbalance of performance, right? Performance versus support. The support has been off the charts forever. Performance is lagged behind. It's that whole born on third base, thought you hit a triple kind of situation. Is that what the program actually needs right now? Is to just get in the lab, shut out the noise, and get good at freaking football instead of all the other crap, instead of the facilities, instead of, isn't this a great story that this person's doing? Look at this podcast. Like, stop it. Get good at football.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
because that's what we saw this year. We saw a team. We saw Hoiberg's team just be good at basketball.
Yeah,
I
hate. I don't want to compare football and basketball because I think they're just different beasts. But how much do you guys think the malaise towards spring football and I think you stepped away, Mark, when I was saying back-to-back 7-win seasons, the way the game was played last year. Just basketball going on. They started early with spring ball, and all of a sudden, instead of in the middle of April, it's now the end of March and you're having a spring game. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why the attendance will be down, but don't we have to, you can't have a Nebraska football discussion without, if you're a rule guy or not a rule guy, right? And here's the thing with rule.
Yeah.
Rule can't do anything to change the public opinion until the middle of October.
Yeah.
When they play Oregon and Indiana.
No.
But I have not seen a coach, and a lot of coaches around here, we go from their win-loss record to their personality. Man, Matt Rule's Q rating has fallen off the table. And the opinion of him is just, I think what you have is an opinion of Rule. Outside of the wins and losses, his personality, that kind of drives your feel for where you're at with Nebraska football. Because I will say this, so I'll go the other way. I think I'm very intrigued by this team because there's so many unknowns. And I'm a sicko, and it's football, and I'll watch football. I think this offense has a chance to be really good, but they have to go out and prove it. But I think whenever you talk to anybody that is not in our little, 4-square box here or our great viewers, it starts with the head coach. And do you like him or not? It's just Nebraska football is in a weird spot right now that, again, they really can't change anybody's opinion until the middle of October.
Yeah, no, they can't. And people are they're just tired of investing and not getting anything out of it. Right.
It's been an ongoing thing too. I mean, rules here and now, and it went from dude can talk and he's so outgoing to
and that's all great.
How did last year happen the way it happened? And be better on Saturdays, make better hires on your staff, and on and on and on, right? And that's the rubber meets the road. It's go perform on Saturdays, and spend a little. And this is some of the commentary out there. Spend a little less time in front of the camera and microphone, and figure out a way to go beat somebody of importance.
Yeah,
and that's just it. I mean, it has flipped and shifted. And the death nails have been was not just that you got beat by some good teams, but you got demolished.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So that's it.
Yeah. If you're going to lose, just to real quick compare basketball to football. I know you don't want to do that real quick, but if you're going to lose like Hoiberg did at Michigan. Right.
So
You
last
lose
time
with
that's
honor.
happened in
You
football.
lose.
Yeah.
Right. You
Yeah.
lose with honor.
3 years ago.
You're sort of like, hey, that's all right. Right. That's okay. I mean, of course you want to win, but damn, they left it all out there. They gave them a good run. They were a bucket away. Don't lose by having sub 500 Penn State treat you like a JV team. Like, what is happening there? Right. Like that just speaks to everything we just praised Hoiberg about: chemistry, team that's connected, certain standards, effort levels. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because you could see it, you could sense it. And that's the polar opposite of what you've been seeing out of Nebraska down the stretch last couple of years.
Again, I think this offense has a chance because they have an offensive line that I think can help a quarterback instead of relying on a quarterback to help an offensive line. But we got 22 Saturdays to debate that. I think going back as we rewind the tape of last fall, and when the whole Penn State stuff was going on and Nebraska announced the contract extension, were people elated or were they like, why?
It was
that because if you love your football
why.
coach and you see momentum, you're like, oh yeah, okay, good stability. Now we got him. It became more of, instead of the who, it became more of discussing the why. And I think that was starting to, and that was on the cusp of the USC game. And if you win the USC game and Dylan doesn't get hurt, you're probably going to reach the expectation that you had for last year. Yeah. But it just, as I go back and think about that little 2-day stretch, just the fan reaction, I think told you where people are with this program. And again, I don't think Rule can do anything until mid-October because they have a chance to get off to a good start and they'll do some good things. And they have some interesting young pieces that I think will play well, but it'll be like, okay, here you go. You're playing a team with a number in front of their name. How about you beat them?
What you can't have is drum up this uncertainty about leaving or staying for the Penn State gig, right? You leveraged it into an extension. If you can't go get your ass handed to you by a team in Minnesota that you're supposed to be better than, and you have a Minnesota problem, you have an Iowa problem. Forget about Ohio State and Oregon.
Yeah.
So that was the insult to injury there. If you were on the fence whether or not you give the guy an extension to keep him because you don't want to get into the old coaching carousel the way this season was. I mean, it was nuts. I understood that, kind of keeping going what you brought in and you've seen some progress, but then to go out and just get manhandled. Absolutely manhandled Minnesota. That was the problem.
Yeah. How does Rule handle? And we've all seen him at basketball games, and he was once again there on Thursday and caught strays on Twitter after they showed him, and Iowa finishes.
He's not telling the director to pan to him. You know?
But that's just kind of where we are. Is Rule is I know that he was a little testy about how we handled Frost when Frost record wasn't so good, but we weren't going after him, and now he's like, why are people coming after me? We kind of got this, my record's a little bit better. Is the transition of the first couple of years where you could be the salesman and you were everything that Frost wasn't. And you're like, okay, I see it. But then year 3 happens and you see what might be reality. So everything that you were selling, like when you could walk up to a Husker fan's door and you had your briefcase and you're like, hey, can I come into your living room and sell Nebraska football? And that fan opened the door, they brought you in, and then all of a sudden the wife is making dinner for you. Now Rule walks up to that same house, knocks on the door, and the family immediately, they dive under the couch and turn off the lights to show that nobody's there. I mean, it's kind of, he's
get off my porch.
And this might be, you know what? This is what year 4 is. Year 4 is Matt Rule the football coach that Nebraska needs? And I'm saying coach, not the salesman, the football coach. No salesman, football coach. That's what we determine in year 4.
And what is the role of the most successful football coaches, head coaches? It's a little bit get out of the way and just handle some big things. Get really good assistants. Let them do their thing. Like you have. Listen, you have Dana.
Yeah.
You have Dana. Dana's a very experienced guy. He's been a head coach. Let him do his thing. Same with Orich, right? Like, careful on what you meddle in. Stay focused on the big strategic things. Pay attention to the freaking clock during the game, right? Pay attention to that stuff and don't worry about. I don't know. It just seems like from the outside, he didn't necessarily bring in the right assistants, and then he meddled maybe a little too much when things weren't going as well as they could have. But he's remade the staff, and the parallels with Hoiberg are there too, by the way. Like, Hoiberg struggled. We're talking about Sweet 16, but
you have to reset it.
Oh, completely. You had to figure out what works here.
Sure.
And kind of what you're missing here and how you have to adapt to the new world. Hoiberg's had to do that. College football has changed quite a bit since Rule left and came back.
So I'm going to violate the rule that I said earlier, and Mark, you've done this to me, but that's okay.
Good job.
So remember,
Welcome to the party.
Hoiberg started 40-83. Since then, he's 72-32, and it's well documented how they made the transition, the patience. Trev working with him, changing the locker room, a couple of additions to his staff, had some stability with his staff now, has a assistant coach that, Nate Lesnar is about as good as Fred. Fred's got his strength as an offensive mind. Nate's got his definite strengths as a defensive guy. Your belief that Rule, who is essentially in 3 years, 500, that the next 3 years, because you're not blowing out Matt Rule. The structure cannot afford something like that. It's like the tree bark. Okay. They need to start adding years to the base of the tree. Can he have a start like Hoiberg and a second phase like Hoiberg? If we're talking about a reset, which he did with his staff, when, you bring in a new DC, you change some faces on that side of the ball, and maybe one of the most important positions in your program next to the head coach and the strength coach is who is coaching offensive line. You made 2 hires that you really believe in, and those guys that are playing for him believe in. Do you believe that Matt Rule can be Fred Hoiberg in the 2.0 phase?
I do. And part of that is because of the hires. Your initial hires were, with Mr. Tony was good, right? You went outside of your comfort zone for that hire, and that was well done. You've retained Addison Williams, Jeep Wade, and Lonnie are good. You have 2 guys working on the offensive line.
Hey, that worked in the past. Why not?
Yeah, well, you have one recruiter. You have one that's a stronger recruiter. One's a hell of a developer, and Georgia Tech had a high standard of what you had to be as an offensive line coach because of how hell bent their head coach was on offensive line play. So those are strong moves. You went out and got Dana. You had to fix it. You have very few of your original staff remaining. You've had to make changes from when you landed in Lincoln, and he's been willing to do that. And with Orich, that's huge. With Brown, that's huge. And then you got Addison to kind of recruit and patrol the secondary. So will it be immediate? I don't know, but I think you can make headway like Fred did, right? You had that 500 team that had some injuries that was a team nobody wanted to play at the end of the season, right? When it started to flip for Nebraska basketball. I think you can have a similar season this year where, all right, you're not in the 9-8 category. You're not in the top 6 of the Big Ten, but maybe for once you get stronger as this season ends, and then you kind of launch for 27. And patience level for football fans is waning, obviously. But I think if you can keep this together and get some portal hits, and I think maybe you did on the offensive line, it could be okay. Just keep the direction you're going. And listen, at quarterback, and with what Dana is going to be able to do athletically at quarterback, and then with the offensive line and this receiver core, I mean, it could, like your point, Sharpie, it could be a pretty high upside offense.
Well, and I think to your point about the offensive line, I mean, the whole goal for this team in my eyes this year is to be more fundamentally sound.
Yeah.
Better as tacklers, better angles defensively, better gap integrity defensively, solid along the lines of scrimmage. Like, this year to me is about improving the fundamentals, just being a better football team. Yeah, it's a tougher schedule, but Husker football fans are smart, and they can see a team that is more fundamentally sound, even if the wins aren't there. Because if you're fundamentally sound, you will be in almost all the football games. You'll be in it. Will you win all those games? Probably not. It's a tough schedule. That's what you're looking for. And I compare it back because it's been doing a lot of Husker basketball and football talk today, and I've done it a couple times this offseason. This season needs to be that Greasel, Bandamel, Juwan Gary, Derek Walker season for Nebraska, where were they the best basketball team on the court? Were they the best basketball team in the Big Ten? No. But culturally, they had it right. You could tell it was a team that was playing with more identity than Hoiberg's previous years, and they finished the season strong. They had a strong February close to the season that made you go, you know what? There's something in this team. I mean, that was the month that saved Fred Hoiberg's job, because you saw a team that had the fundamentals down. They were in every single basketball game. They had a clear identity, and they had guys that all seemed to be culturally positive for the basketball team. That's what this season needs to be for Husker football. Is it lead to a 10-2 type season? No, it doesn't have to. But if you have the right culture guys in place, you have the right coaching staff in place, you have a team that plays fundamentally sound and is in football games this fall, Husker fans can accept a 7-5 season if they see things that are encouraging, that let you go, you know what? There is a solid foundation for a football program moving forward. Because that's why I think this program lacks right now is a solid foundation. You don't really have identity on either side of the ball, and you're not sure about what the culture is behind the scenes.
Eye test will show you progress.
Yeah. Hey, the I word Elijah just used, identity. We've been searching for an identity for Nebraska football. I would like an attitude that guys play with an edge, that guys, hey, you know what? Hey, is that Cam Jurgens 25 yards down the field bearing an Oklahoma Sooner? Hey, we'll take that. That's a 15-yard penalty. I like that. I think when you play with confidence, you can play with an edge, you can play with an attitude, and you play a little bit dirty, okay? It's okay to pop a guy here or there, be a hit sticker, break some dick. But I think the identity, I think comparing basketball here, I got a T-shirt, by the way, if you guys want to add that to the average Joe, hit stick, broke dick. You've never heard that before?
No, that's great
okay.
though.
No,
we'll take it.
Okay, there is one thing going back.
And the shirt or back.
I mean, Schmidt, isn't it in the front?
Well, yeah, but I just usually, if we do the average Joe logo, you'll have it here.
How about hit stick on the front, break dick on the back?
Yeah, that might get some looks, people walking behind you. But that's okay, because then they'll come. See, once you see the back, you want to see the front. That's how I've always operated. Okay? Yeah. Okay. So the thing about Nebraska basketball, though, and you guys are doing this to me, and I one of my things for Lent is I wasn't going to compare. So I've broken that, and I also ate meat yesterday.
Oh, geez.
Sorry.
Going straight to hell.
And dude, especially on the cusp of Holy Week. God. Is Nebraska basketball has the sideline figured out. They also do one thing that in the sport is elite. They were an elite cutting team, okay, with the actions that they ran. Now, it helped to have 21 doing what he did. Is there anything in the 26 Nebraska football DNA that you guys could project and go, I think by the end of the year or during the middle of the year, they're going to be elite in this?
It has to be just from the onset right now. You went and got Calandria. I mean, can you be really good at being a headache on third down when it comes to extending plays, just figuring out a way to move the chains or get a clutch score? Because on the onset right now, you think the O-line will be pretty athletic and talented. You think the defense might be able to harass a quarterback in the fourth quarter. But ultimately, do you have a quarterback that can be a difference maker and be a playmaker for you against some of those elite teams because he's such a problem on third down?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and
I circle that. And otherwise, I have no idea. I want to see more today.
Well, someone in the stream earlier was talking about how Dana hasn't done anything since he's been here, right? Dana has had Raiola the entire time, and this is I don't even think it's
and nephew.
What's that?
Said uncle and nephew.
Right. That's what I'm saying. And I think Raiola can succeed, but he needs a great offensive line with great pass protection in order to succeed. Right. I think we can all agree on that. When he has time,
he's talented. He's incredible.
Yeah, he can really.
It's not always perfect though.
No, of course not. But he didn't have that. He did not have good pass protection, and so that was like a bad fit. So what do you do if you're Dana? Right? Like you can't. I mean, if your tackles are getting pancaked,
you hand it off.
Yeah.
Well,
your offensive tackles are getting pancaked. You know what? What do you want them to do? Right? Like that's crazy.
That's why.
So I don't think we've seen Dana yet. I don't know that we've seen Dana yet. He's going to have a different guy now where you don't have you just had so many limitations before a ball was even snapped. So many that he had to account for. Okay, let's see. I got a great pocket passer and I can't protect the pocket. Perfect. Like what the hell are you going to do with that? So it'll be very interesting to see how this year goes when he doesn't have. You seemingly don't have many just clear limitations before the ball's even snapped. Right?
Yeah. I mean, the reality is Nebraska hasn't gotten the return on investment of Dana. Like they hired Dana and you're like, ooh, wow. And it's still to this day, still kind of mind-boggling that Dana Holgorsen is the offensive coordinator at Nebraska. Yeah. But all those things you pointed out, Mark, are correct. But we haven't gotten a return on investment. I think, sometimes Nebraska needs a break in football. They need a break to go their way. Look at the vibe around the program. If Minchie was in the mix and he had stuck with his commitment compared to getting a guy like Calandria, because it seems all of a sudden guys that talk about Calandria this spring perk up a little bit, and he comes along at the right time. Dylan was a brand. Dylan absorbed a lot of oxygen and maybe at times sucked the oxygen out of the room and out of the program because all the focus was on 15 and the hope of what 15 could do. That you get a guy who does play with his hair on fire compared to your previous quarterback, that it came along at the right time. But regardless, you've got a stacked wide receiver room. You've got some intrigue at running back. Can't wait to see Rule today. I think you have an offensive line that can help a quarterback more than the quarterback's got to help the offensive line. And that doesn't mean to take anything away from Calandria, but I think this offensive line is going to be pretty good. They already know they're starting five. They're old men. I think they're going to be coached really well. It aligns where this is the year that we make a decision on Matt Rule, a football coach. This is probably also the year we make a decision on, does Dana Holgorsen still have some bullets left in the gun? Is he still the Dana Holgorsen that is popping Red Bull, or is he the Dana Holgorsen that is, more on the side of let's get into that rocking chair as retired football coaches? Mm-hmm. And you hope it's not the latter because what he can do, but he hasn't done it. And the flair. I keep going back to where is guys in motion? Where is jet sweep? Where is mesh? Those kind of things. Do we finally get those? And I do think as you listen to Dana talk, doesn't it seem like Dana's got a little pep in his step? He stayed here because of Dylan. Before he agreed to stay, he had to make sure that Dylan was going to stay. So Dylan is gone, and you think Dana is gone? I don't know. It almost seems like he's finally got a quarterback that matches his personality. Yeah. And maybe that's what we've been longing for.
Yeah, they're personality, man, is gunslinger. Both of them. Some final thoughts, fellas. Elijah, I know you got to get to baseball. Kraynak, you continue to just rock those glasses.
I will.
Sharpie's.
Hey, great start by the Giants. Are they ever going to score? They're about as boring as could be with Vitello as their manager.
That one's going to be interesting to watch, right? Like they've totally remade their outfield. They've remade kind of the composition of their team. I mean, Oracle Park it just swallows home runs, right? Like you can't just be like hey, we're going to walk, strike out, or hit a dinger. Like not there. You got to have speed in the outfield. You got to have guys that can hit the bloop singles. You got to put pressure on the base paths. They've totally changed up their makeup, but they're facing the Yankees right out the gate. And, who knows?
Behind Wrigley, Oracle Kraynak is incredible.
Which both are behind
Park.
Both are behind Coors Field. Great.
You just
Coors
like the vicinity to dispensaries.
Well, can I ask the question to you guys? I was going to ask if the Rockies are going to win a game this season. I'm sure they probably will. Can anyone in this crew here name me a single Colorado Rockies player in 2026?
Brenton Doyle.
There's one.
Andres Galarraga.
No.
Larry Walker. Todd
I was
Helton.
going to say, yeah.
Ante Bouchette.
I mean, I am looking.
Mike Hampton. Dinger, the mascot.
There's like 3 players I know of, and I'm a Rockies fan. I'm looking. Maybe Charlie Condon makes his debut this year, but this is the Rockies, man. Get him out of professional baseball.
Yeah,
I mean, they're only going to lose 103 this year.
It's too good a spot to go party.
Well, they need to sell the team to somebody else or have them go play against the Savannah Bananas. Simple as that.
Yeah.
All right, one more thing on this end, because we didn't get a chance to get to this, but they're both playing at home again today. Great win by Nebraska softball last night. Great win by Nebraska baseball to hold on. Will we have and I think I'm right on this on the calendar, will we have at Doleman Stadium and Haymarket Park a super regional and a regional going on the same weekend?
The way baseball's...
Or wait a minute. I may be off here on the calendar. Okay, let me just put this. Will there be a super regional at Doleman, and will there be a regional at Haymarket Park?
Nebraska baseball 20-6 right now.
I'll say yes. I'll say yes on the super regional for Husker softball. I don't think we see a regional for Husker baseball just because the margin of error in the Big Ten in order to be a regional hosting team is so minuscule that
you got to finish top 2 and then win the whole postseason tournament, probably to host this year.
Hold on. That's
dropping one series to like a middle of the road Big Ten team can drop you from regional host to a team that's playing on the road. That's the margin of error is.
Now, listen, the SEC and the ACC obviously are the cream of the crop in baseball, and the Big Ten has just been an afterthought forever.
They do have the number 1 team.
But exactly. That's what I'm saying. Does that change now?
Because
I hear you, Elijah. I think based on last couple of years, you're absolutely right. It's like you'll get your sort of token Big Ten inclusion with the top 2 teams. But now UCLA, USC, Oregon, right? Nebraska is kind of, Michigan has advanced far recently. Like, does the profile of the Big Ten change? The perception of Big Ten baseball, does it improve a little bit just based off of those kind of perennial powers that are now a part of it?
I think the problem with the Big Ten is not the top 4 or 5 teams in the conference. It's everybody else. That's what I'm saying. Where if you drop a game to a series to a middle of the road Big Ten team, it's going to drop your RPI a lot.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's still looked at UCLA, Oregon, USC. In the baseball world, do you look at them as Big Ten teams? No, you still kind of look at them as just West Coast teams. Yeah. Here's what, and here's, they're unbeaten at home. They have won 15 of 16. They're a good baseball team that, I think has started to figure out their bullpen. They have 3 really good starters and another. The vibe on Nebraska baseball, you watch how Tuesday night here in Omaha dictates the vibe, because that'll be the first Nebraska-Creighton matchup. And if Nebraska is rolling, they win that game and they go into the conference weekend and you're like, this is it. But in my opinion, I think Nebraska right now, they position themselves where they're definitely a number 2. If you were putting together the field of 64 today, I think in terms of hosting, your resume comes down to a couple of weeks from now when you go to Eugene, Oregon, and you play a 3-game series at Oregon, because Nebraska doesn't have UCLA on the schedule this year. They don't have USC on the schedule this year. So they're playing, as Elijah alluded to, more of the bottom teams in the Big Ten. So they just need to win, but they can't get that bump. But that Oregon series in Eugene is monstrous for Nebraska hosting baseball in early June.
No, well said. That it goes back to the margin of error for sure. With that, like and subscribe 7 days a week. The Average Joe Sports Show. YouTube can find us Sunday live tomorrow, 10:30 ish. Kraynak will send you a link. All right.
Yeah, please do.
All right.
It keeps getting spam filtered.
Oh, does it?
Yeah. That's not true. That's not true.
We didn't believe you for a second.
I'm lying.
Hey, does anybody want to take a you could, because the one thing about spring games is we always get that obscure guy that flashes and then we never talk about him again. You remember Jamal Turner?
Oh yeah. Turner.
Who was the kid that had he was carried off the field a couple years ago?
Right. Yeah.
He never to be heard of again.
No, I know.
Does anybody want to just take a stab at an obscure player that will do something today that you will not talk about him in the fall? Now, you are a sicko if you can just rattle off an obscure guy on this year's roster.
He's not that obscure, but I think he's in a tough room to find any place in the field in the fall. How about Connor Booth?
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
He's Butler type performance.
Yeah, they talk about the 4 running backs, and Connor's like, "What am I, chopped liver? What are you talking? What about me?"
I think
right?
I think he's a special teams guy to start, but that room is pretty stacked.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we could be in a situation where Nebraska starts a freshman running back on opening day.
I don't know. I kind of think Thomas D'Onofrio at safety.
Look at you.
I just pulled up the roster.
I
just looked for the one guy I've never talked about or heard of in my life.
Kraynak, you got his jersey in the closet. I know you do.
This guy's out of Middleton, Wisconsin, 6'1", 185, and he's about to lay the wood today.
Okay.
How about David Huffkin? Huh?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey,
hear a lot about him, the German.
He has
not the same one that's at Chris's house. Different German.
Well played.
Yeah.
Everybody will watch today and try and figure out in the offseason what the defensive line rotation is. Has anybody, a coach or a player, has anybody talked about Riley Van Poppel this spring?
He's been mentioned by Coach Brown, but
I like him in a 4-man front better than a 3.
Well, definitely. But he's a guy that you haven't heard much about. I'm going to go with let's stick with Nebraska. Let's go popular Battle Creek family. Let's go Trent Euler will be my obscure flash guy today.
Okay. All right. I like that one.
Are they out of Eulers in Battle Creek?
I don't believe so.
I don't know.
I always love small towns where they may not all be related, but they're a familiar name that they just keep producing. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's my cousin or that's my brother. And they're like 17 years younger than the previous Euler that came through Battle Creek.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
I don't, Elijah, you got a name?
I said Connor Booth.
Kind of.
Yeah.
I want to see
count?
Danny Odom. I want to see Odom. That's not obscure.
Yeah, he's a presumed starter or at least first guy off the bench.
We're talking small town Nebraska guys that are on.
Yeah, let's go small town Nebraska guys. Danny Odom. Well, Nebraska needs him to be a dude before his career is over. Yeah, he's a set aside guy.
If you want a smaller Isaac Dickey,
how about he's not.
Isaac Dickey. That's a good call.
What about Ethan Duda?
I'm going to shout out Camden Cook. There we go.
Okay,
he's going to put about 30 of them inside the 5.
I like that.
Are they going to play special teams today?
The life of a backup punter. God, you know how much work those guys have to do, right? And then even if you're the starter, you get like what, 12 seconds of action in a game. And then if you're the backup, you just practice. You just go to a field all the time and kick a ball.
I've told this story before. Bo Pelini's son Patrick was on my youth football team growing up, so we got to go out and check.
Throw it to
out.
Patrick.
He was the quarterback. He was the quarterback. I was the center. He touched my butt a lot.
Lefty?
No, right.
Okay.
Anyway.
Whoa.
Here's what's crazy about that is they were in the shotgun. So Elijah, what are you talking about?
No, but I don't know how I come back from that.
You're the one.
One more thing.
Anyway, it was always fun to go to practice and just see, like, you'd always there'd be fights going on, like, at goal line period, and guys are getting after it. And then here's all the specialists on the side just long snapping and kicking into a net. Those long snappers were incredible. I've told this story before, and I know because you guys laughed about it for a long time.
Nipple.
Yes. Right nipple, left nipple. Those long snappers, 18 yards back to the punter, could go right nipple, left nipple, where they wanted that long snap to go. So that, like, the long snapper just over there, like long snap after long snap. And here's the kicker, like, you got long snap to the holder, and he just sets it up and then tosses it back and sets it up and tosses it back. And it was just those guys. I don't know how they didn't go insane just doing the same minor operation over and over and over again at practice while they're looking off to their right. And here's Michael Rose and Stanley Morgan getting into a fight in goal line period because someone took exception to something that went on. And then you have coaches coming in, like, not in front of the kids, not while the kids are here.
While a spewing of F-bombs happen.
Yes.
Not in front of the kids. Quit fighting.
Hey, I'm glad I saw there in the stream Vince Genatone.
Yeah.
Who freak athlete. I'd like to see him unleashed. I really want to see him play more meaningful football. And I think the move position-wise, I think will benefit him greatly. But he just seems like a special teams demon. Like the Ragonis of the world, the Grays of the world that have made a living on special teams. It seems like Genatone could kill a guy.
Yeah. Well, and good work. Good pull there. Lance Gray. Wedge buster.
Hey, Lance Gray, what was his nickname? Bullet Head?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
He is it Penland too?
Andrew Penland, yeah. He was a Texan, right?
Yeah, he was.
Or 52.
He was a 52, and remember him running off to the wrong sideline against Florida State in an Orange Bowl.
Yeah. Was he on the field for the game at Michigan State when they punted the wrong way?
I don't know.
That would have been appropriate.
Yeah.
By the way,
those days?
What about Bly Hill? Bly Hill is still on the roster and he's a junior.
Good for him.
Remember a spring game? What was it, guys? Hey, here's the bizarro world. That same spring game, Danny Kalin was a Husker.
I know.
That was Dylan's debut. And you had two guys suffer major, just career-altering injuries, and Bly Hill was one of them.
That was bad.
Yeah. But you're right. Bly Hill's still on the roster. They thought they were ramping him up, that he could play the second half of last year, and he suffered a little bit of a setback. And I don't know. God, they were so high on him 2 springs ago. He was going to be a starter.
Yeah.
And then he suffered the knee injury in the spring game. I don't know where he's at right now.
Both him and Demetrius Bell. I bet you they're really close because they are just in the training room and rehabbing all the time.
Demetrius to kind of stay healthy and get a shot. And
both those guys. Those guys presumed starters that just haven't been able to touch the field.
Speaking of Kalin, it won't be decided after today, but watch who is the number 2 quarterback on opening day, 22 Saturdays from now.
I love that we're going to just every Saturday just cross off, man.
I think that's going to be a thing that shifts throughout the year, throughout the season. I don't think Lateef or Kalin are going to be able to pull away. And I think they're going to do that on purpose because they want to retain both. That's just my thought. Right.
Okay.
That's just my prediction.
You're playing the long game. I like it.
Kraynak, enjoy your Saturday, brother. Appreciate you.
Godspeed. Yes, sir. You too.
We'll chat soon, brother. Thank you much.
How many one final thing, quick one, around the horn here. Estimated attendance today. Because it's going to be kickoff's going to be about in the mid-50s. 11 a.m. kick.
I'd say 18-9. We're playing prices right. 18-9. And I hope there's at least $1 million, and this is a large ask, but I hope there's $1 million given out to our friends in Western Nebraska with the wildfires. Somehow, some way that number hits $1 million.
I'm at
which the 2 ones going on aren't even like 50% contained. That's wild.
I am at 17-2.
Okay.
I don't know a single person going to the game.
I don't either.
My simplest, and I know the ticket sales are low, but I don't know a single person that's going. Well, besides Schmidt, it's your job.
Yeah, 15,000, 15. If his price is right, I'm going to go under. So
that's already in the bank, dude.
Yeah,
that's already sold.
Yeah. Well, all the tickets sold are going to show up.
Yeah. I know.
I'll just say 20,000. I have a good friend who, along with a local establishment in the Haymarket, they're having a fundraiser today.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just no juice in Lincoln for the spring game. I mean, just talk to business owners.
And honestly, I think it's okay. It's okay. Get good at football. Get good at football.
Wow.
Let's not worry about the hoopla. Right? For real.
Back tomorrow, Sunday live, Average Joe Sports Show, 10:30. Find us then. Appreciate you all. And we'll talk to you next time here with the Average Joe Sports Show.
GBR.